She ran along the cold platform, barking into the wind, her paws tapping against the concrete as people turned their backs. Trains roared past and she did not flinch. Her eyes were wide, wild, begging. But no one listened. She was just another stray to them. Some shouted at her. Others tossed empty bottles or waved their hands to scare her off. One man threw a piece of bread, thinking she was hungry. She sniffed it, then looked past it, back toward the tracks. She barked again, louder this time. Not for food? Not for shelter. She needed someone to follow. Every time the station quieted between trains, she returned to the same spot near the edge, her nose pressed to the ground. She whined and pawed at the metal grate near the drainage pipe. The wind carried faint sounds from below, but no one stopped long enough to hear. It was only when a man named Rafik sat on a bench nearby that something shifted. He had been watching her for 10 minutes, trying to read her body. She was not wandering aimlessly. She was focused, frantic, and clearly in distress. He stood up slowly and approached her. The dog barked once, short and sharp, then turned and ran toward the platform edge again. Rafik followed. She circled the grate, looked up at him, and barked once more. Her eyes locked on his. In that moment, something passed between them. He knelt down and pressed his ear close to the opening. At first, he heard nothing but the hum of trains and the whisper of wind. Then it came a tiny, high-pitched whimper. Barely there, but real. He froze. Someone was crying down there. Someone small and helpless. He looked back at the dog. She stood still, tail down, eyes never leaving his face. Rafik turned to the station guard nearby. He pointed at the grate. There are puppies down there. I heard them. The guard laughed without moving. It is probably just rats. That dog has been here all week. She is crazy. You should leave her alone. But Rafik shook his head. No, that sound was not rats. He backed away and pulled out his phone. He called a friend in town, a volunteer at a local shelter, and explained what he had seen. Within the hour, help was on the way. When Rafik returned with 2 volunteers and a young vet assistant named Sana, the dog was still there. She had not moved. Her fur was matted and dirty. Her ribs showed through her skin, but she was alert. She wagged her tail faintly when she saw him return. The team brought a crowbar and flashlights. Rafik knelt again, and this time the cries were louder. Sana nodded and began working on the grate. It took several minutes to lift it free. Beneath it was a narrow maintenance tunnel, dark and filled with debris. The air smelled damp and something else like rotting cloth. Sana slid inside first, moving slowly, flashlight shaking slightly in her hand. The crawlspace was tight and the walls were slick with old moisture. Then she stopped. Her voice came back, quiet but sure. I see them. 3 puppies. They are alive, barely. Above ground, the mother dog whimpered and stepped forward, watching every movement. One by one, the volunteers reached down, lifting out tiny, shaking puppies wrapped in old newspaper and dirt. They were thin, eyes barely open, stomachs bloated with gas. But they were alive. The mother dog rushed forward as soon as the last puppy was lifted. She sniffed each one, licking their faces, nudging them gently with her nose. Her body trembled with exhaustion, but her tail thumped against the ground. She had waited for this moment. She had not failed them. Then Sana called from inside again. There is one more. Her voice had changed, quieter, heavier. It is not moving. She cradled a smaller bundle wrapped in damp cloth. It was cold, limp, the smallest of the litter, a runt barely clinging to life. Sana laid the puppy down and began chest compressions with 2 fingers, soft breaths into its tiny mouth. The crowd had grown silent. Even the station guards stood still now, watching with wide eyes. Rafik held his breath. The mother dog stood completely still, her eyes locked on her baby. One breath, too, a pause. Then a twitch. The puppy's leg kicked, and a weak gasp came from its chest. The mother let out a deep, low whine, then licked the puppy's face like she was pulling it back from the dark. It began to cry soft, broken, but alive. Relief swept through the people standing there. A moment ago, they had all been strangers. Now, they were witnesses to something fragile and powerful. Life reclaimed from silence. And the mother who had never given up, no matter how many times they had turned her away. Sana wrapped the puppies in clean cloth and handed them to the volunteers. They would go to the clinic, receive fluids, warmth, and care. The mother dog followed closely, never leaving their side. She had stayed in the cold for days, barking at shadows, sleeping under benches, all to save her family. At the shelter, the puppies were placed in a heated box with soft towels and bottles. They cried and squirmed, their voices louder now, stronger. The mother curled around them and sighed, finally able to rest. Rafik sat nearby, silent, his hands wrapped around a cup of tea. He looked at her. She looked back. In that quiet room, something passed between them again. A thank you. A promise. A kind of peace neither of them had known in a long time. He smiled and leaned forward, resting his hand near her paw. The next morning, the shelter was full of chatter. Photos of the rescue had already begun to spread online. The image of the mother dog curled around her puppies beneath. The old train platform touched. Hearts around the world. People asked for updates. Some sent donations. Others offered to adopt. News reporters came. They wanted to speak with Rafik, but he only said a few words. She did all the work. I just listened. Sana nodded beside him. That is how it begins? Someone listens. The story grew beyond the station. It became a story about not walking past, about choosing to care. Volunteers visited often. The puppies were gaining weight. Their eyes opened wider each day. They learned to walk, to bark, to play. But wherever they went, their mother followed. She watched them constantly, nuzzled them to sleep, corrected them gently when they strayed too far. Her devotion never faded. And then came the day when Rafik had to leave. His work called him back to the city. He packed his bag and prepared to say goodbye. But the mother dog did not understand. She followed him to the door of the shelter, her ears back, her eyes confused. He turned, looked at her, and sighed. You want to come with me? She stepped forward and placed one paw on his boot. It was not a dramatic moment. No music, no camera. Just two souls who had found each other by accident, and now, neither wanted to part. Rafik spoke with the shelter staff. Papers were signed. Arrangements were made. And when he left the village, he did not go alone. The mother dog lay beside him in the passenger seat. Her puppies, now old enough to be weaned, stayed behind with new adoptive families. But her place was with him. They drove out of the town quietly, past the train station where it all began. No one noticed them pass. But in that car, a new life was beginning. One shaped by a desperate bark, a moment of listening, and a promise never to walk away again. Sometimes the ones who cry the loudest are not the ones who need the most help. Sometimes it is the ones who bark and beg, who get chased away, who come back again and again because they have something precious to protect, something they love more than themselves. That mother dog was never looking for pity. She was never asking for food. She was asking for someone to see what she saw, to hear what she heard, to understand what she could never say in words. And all it took was one man who chose to pause and listen. She saved her puppies. But in a way, she saved something in Rafik too. Something quiet. Something that had been forgotten. The part of him that still believed in miracles. In small lives that matter. In second chances that find you when you least expect them. And now, when people ask him about that day at the station, he does not say much. He just looks down at the dog by his side, curled up with her head on his foot, eyes closed, at peace. He rubs her ears gently and smiles. Because sometimes the smallest voice can change everything. All you have to do is listen.